Alright, welcome to today's lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to rename mixed numbers to subtract a fraction. The problem that we run into sometimes when we subtract mixed numbers from one another is that the numerator in the smaller mixed number might be greater than the numerator in the greater mixed number. So in order to remedy that problem, we can use a couple of strategies, and one of them is drawing a diagram. So here I have 2 1/4, and I'm supposed to take away from that 1 3/4. But as you can see, the numerator in the bottom mixed number is greater, again, than the numerator in the top mixed number. So in order to work out this problem using a diagram, what I've drawn here is 3 full circles. And the circles here represent the greater mixed number. And the reason I have 3 is because I have 2 holes and 1/4 of the next hole. So I have to have 3 holes. I'm going to go ahead and shade in the stuff that's represented by the 2 holes. And that's actually the full circle over here. This is 1 hole. I'll go ahead and shade in the whole thing. And the whole second circle. And for the third hole, I'm only going to shade in one of the fourths because I only have 1 out of the 4 parts shaded in. So I'll go ahead and shade in just 1/4 of that. Now, using this diagram, I'm going to remove 1 3/4 away from this. So all I have to do in this case, I can go ahead and take away a hole, and I can do that easily by just crossing out one of the holes. Boom, there it goes. 1 hole is being taken away. So I've taken care of this part right here. Now I'm going to take away 3/4. So all I need is 3 out of 4 pieces. So here I have 4 pieces, and here I have 1 piece. I'm going to remove this one just to make it easier on my eyes. And then I need to remove another 2 more in order to have a total of 3. So I'll remove those 2, and here are my 3/4. So that's this part right there. And what I'm left with is the difference of the 2 mixed numbers. So I only have 2 out of 4 pieces left over from what was shaded in the original problem. So my answer is 2/4. Now remember, you might have to put this in simplest form. So again, divide by the GCF. In this case, it is 2. And we'll have a simplest form answer of 1/2. And that's how you subtract mixed numbers using a diagram when the numerator in the bottom or the smaller mixed number is greater than the numerator of the greater mixed number. Here's another example, and we're going to go ahead and solve this one using a different strategy. So we have 5 1/8. And we're supposed to take away from that 3 3/8. But we'll notice again that the numerator over here is actually greater than the numerator there. So I can't take 3 away from 1. So I somehow, some way, have to make this numerator greater than that numerator. In order to do that, I'm going to employ the strategy of just borrowing a hole. So this 5 holes here can be represented in a couple of ways. But one of them is, since we're working with 8s, I can represent that 5 holes as 8 over 8 plus 8 over 8 plus 8 over 8 plus 8 over 8 and another 8 over 8. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes because any number over the same number represents a hole. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to borrow one of these 8 over 8s. And so these right here I am not going to touch. So I'm left with 4 holes, and this hole that I'm borrowing, I'm going to give to this first fraction. So I'm going to have, instead of 1/8, I'm going to have 9/8 because I'm going to add this numerator and that numerator. So I'm going to get a total of 9 there, and the denominator stays the same. So I'm going to have 9/8. So now I can take away 3 3/8 away from that because now my numerator here is greater than that one. So I'll just simply work out the problem, do the whole numbers first. So I have 4, take away 3, and that gives me 1. And now I know that my denominator is not going to change, so I'll leave that as 8. And I can do 9 minus 3, and that gives me 6. So 1 6/8 is the answer to this problem right here. However, I still need to put it in simplest form. So I'll go ahead and divide both the numerator and denominator by the GCF. And in this point, I can see that it is 2. So I'll go ahead and divide both of those. And I'll carry over the whole number first. So I have 1. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, now I have another problem. I have 3 and 3/6, take away 1 and 4/6. And I'm going to solve this one using a different strategy, and that is going to be turning just both of the mixed numbers into improper fractions so that my numerator in this case will be greater than that, and I can take away from it. So in order to turn these mixed numbers into improper fractions, it's very simple. All I do is multiply the denominator by the whole number first, and then add the product to the numerator. So I can do 6 times 3 equals 18, and 18 plus 3 equals 21. So I'll end up with 21 over 6. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the 1 and 4/6. So I'll multiply the denominator by the whole number and add the product to the numerator. So 6 times 1 is 6. 6 plus 4 is 10. So now I have 10 over 6. And now I have a numerator up here that I can take away from. So leave the denominator the same, 6, because it doesn't change from the fractions that we're working with. And I just subtract the numerators. 21 take away 10 is equal to 11. So 11/6 is my answer. However, the only problem with this is that this fraction is improper itself. So I have to make sure that I turn it into a mixed number in simplest form. So I just have to ask myself, how many wholes can I take away from here? So I know that in order to get a whole for 6, I have to have 6 over 6. And I can take away from here 1 whole. Because if I do 11/6 minus 6/6, I've taken away the whole. That's this right here. And whatever I'm left with is going to be the fraction part of my answer. So 11 minus 6 is going to be 5, and the 6 stays the same. So 11/6 in simplest form is 1 and 5/6. And there's your answer. Okay, boys and girls, but sometimes when we do these subtraction problems, we kind of sometimes get like a Frankenstein problem like this one, where we have 2 wholes minus 1 and 1/4. And that's a big problem for some of you because you realize right away that there is no fraction here to take away from. So you ask yourself, well, how in the world am I going to take away from the 2? It's very simple. You can use either of the strategies that I've taught you earlier in this video. One of those being the circle method or the draw diagram method. So I've drawn 2 circles here, and that represents the 2 wholes. And I'm going to go ahead and completely fill them both in to represent that I have holes. So I have 2 holes. Here's one, and here's the other. Okay. So now I have the 2 holes drawn in. Now I'm going to take away 1 whole and 1/4 of the next hole. So in order to do that, I can represent it by taking away 1 full hole. That's this in blue right here. And then I can take away 1/4. So this 1/4 is this x right here. So now what I'm left with is the difference of the 2. So I only have 1, 2, 3 out of the 4 pieces of this hole left, and that is my answer, 3/4. Another way that you can solve this problem is just by borrowing a whole and basically turning these 2 wholes into a mixed number. So you would agree with me that 2 wholes can be represented, and since we're working with fourths, as 4 over 4 plus 4 over 4. I could also represent the 2 wholes as 1 and 4 over 4 because I have a hole here and a hole there. So I have 2 holes. So I'm going to go ahead and work with this one right here because this gives me a mixed number that I can take away from. So I'll end up with a new problem, and it will look like this: 1 and 4/4, and I'm going to take away from it 1 and 1/4. Let me go ahead and do that in a different color so that you can see it better. So 1 and 1/4. All right. Now, I can just subtract like I do normally. 1 whole minus 1 whole gives me nothing, and I'll touch base on that in a second. And 4 minus 1 gives me 3, and the 4 stays the same. Now, in mixed numbers, we don't write the 0 over here, so we're just going to go ahead and ignore that 0 and say that our answer is 3/4. But you can put it there sometimes just to kind of help you keep your place and know what you've done and what you haven't done. But remember that when you work out the problem, if you end up with a 0 as your whole number, ignore it as part of your answer and just mention the fraction part. So that's 3/4. Okay, boys and girls, I've taught you now how to rename mixed numbers to subtractive fraction using several methods. Good luck.